Every major tech giant, from Netflix to Spotify, obsess over two numbers: how many people are joining for the first time and how many are actually coming back. As a data analyst, being able to track this user churn and retention is a highly valuable skill. It sounds easy until you are starting at a raw table of millions of records. Today, we are tackling a senior SQL interview question that trips up even experienced analysts. We are going to build a new versus returning user report using SQL. Like explained, now we are going to create a table that is the user login table. And into the table we are going to insert three columns. The first column will be login ID, and here we are using a identity constraint using which we are going to insert data into that particular column. So we don't have to specify that column again in the insert statement. And the second column will be user ID and third column will be login date. And into this table we are going to insert the data which is specified here. So if we go through the data, we can see that the first record corresponds to a new user, that is the user 1 is new, and again the second record is corresponding to a new user, that is corresponding to user ID 2, and the third record is corresponding to the same user, that is user 1, hence that can be considered as a returning visit. Similarly, we are inserting new users and returning users into that particular table. Execute this and we have the table created. Now before querying the table, let us comment the DDL and DML command. Now write a select star on the user login table that we have created. Now execute. So this is the table that we have created and it has got three columns, that is login ID, user ID and login date, and these values are automatically populating in the table using the identity constraint, and these two columns we have specified within the insert statement. Now, as explained in the beginning, we are going to see two different solutions. Let us go through the first solution and see how we can obtain the output for this question, or see how we can obtain the report with the new users and returning users for each day. So this is the solution 1. Solution 1. And we are going to again write a select statement. Now the column which we require are user ID and login date. User underscore ID, comma, login underscore date. So these are the two columns that we require from the input table. Execute, and we have the two columns within the user login table. Now from this table we have to identify the first login date for every user. So for that we are going to make use of the aggregate function minimum. So here we are going to make use of the aggregate function minimum as a window function. So minimum of open and close parenthesis. So minimum of login date we require, that is login underscore date, over. Now we have to write the partition based on user ID column, that is partition by user underscore ID, and here order by close is not required, as first underscore login underscore date, and this will be the first login date corresponding to every user. Execute, and this query has been executed and this is the result that we have obtained. So now we have to compare the login date and first login date and obtain the number of returning users and number of new users. So the first thing what we will do here is we will place this query within a CTE, that is base as open and close parenthesis. Now select. Now the first thing that we require will be login date column, because in the final result we have to obtain the output or the report based on each login date. That is, for each login date we have to generate the number of returning users and new users. So here it will be login underscore date, comma, and now we have to make use of another aggregate function but with a specific condition, and before doing that we will write the from clause. From the base table, now we are going to make use of the sum aggregate function, sum open and close parenthesis. Now here we will write a case statement within the sum aggregate function. So case when login underscore date equal first login date, then 1 else 0, end the case statement, and this column we will name as new users, that is new users, where login date equal to first login date. And now from this case statement we can understand that whenever the login date and first login date are equal, that user can be considered a new user. And now put a comma and we will make use of the aggregate function again, that is sum. We are writing the second case statement, that is case when login underscore date not equal to first login underscore date, then 1 else 0, and the case statement as returning underscore users. And this is taken from the base table, and now we have to make use of another function which is the group by clause, that is group by login date, login underscore date. Now execute this and let us see the result that we have obtained. So now we have obtained a result where we have login date and new users and returning users for that particular login date. Now if we go back to the insert statement, we have already mentioned who are the returning users and who are the new users there. So we can compare the result with the initial table. Here the login date 2099 0101, new users are 2. When going through 2099 0101, there are 2 records corresponding to that particular date, and both of the users are new users, and there are no returning users for that particular date. Now coming to the second date, which is 2099 0102, we have again 2 records corresponding to that particular date, but one of the user is a returning user. So one user is a returning user, that is user 1 is a returning user, and user 3 is a new user. So the count is correct, new user is 1, returning user is 1. Now going to the third record, which is 2099 0103, we can see that it has got 3 records, and corresponding to the 3 records, 2 of the users are returning user, that is the user 2 is a returning user, user 3 is a returning user, but user 4 is a new user. So the total count of returning user for that particular day will be 2 and new user will be 1. Hence we have obtained the same result when we compare the input table with the result that we have obtained. So this is the result that we have to obtain, and this is the correct result. Now let us see how we can obtain the same output using another method and obtain the same output. Solution 2. Now for the second solution, let us write the select star from user login table once again, that is logins. Execute this query, and these are the 3 columns which are available. Here as the first step, we are going to calculate the minimum login date for each user. So instead of star, user underscore ID, comma, minimum, open and close parenthesis, login underscore date, and this will be the first login date, first underscore login underscore date. Now execute. So before executing, we have to write a group by clause also, since we have an aggregate function, that is group by user underscore ID. Now execute and we will get the first login date for every user. Execute and we have the first login date for every user. Now this query we will place inside a CTE, that is with first login as open and close parenthesis, select. Now we are going to join the result that we have obtained from the first CTE with the initial table, that is the user login table. So star from user underscore logins as u left join, we require a left join here. Now mention the first login CTE, that is first underscore login CTE, and this we will name as f, alias name will be f. And now we are going to write the join condition on u dot user underscore ID equal f dot user underscore id. Now in the select we require all the columns from the user login table, that is u dot star, comma, we require only one column from the first login CTE, that is the first login date column, that is f dot first underscore login underscore date. Now execute this query starting from the beginning. Execute. So we have a table created or a derived result created with login ID, user ID, login date and first login date. Now the second query which we have written can be placed inside another CTE, that is base. Base as open and close parenthesis. Now we are going to make use of the sum aggregate function along with the case statement, and this is taken from base, that is select from base, and the first column will be login date, login underscore date, comma. Now we will adopt the same method that we saw in the first solution, that is sum open and close parenthesis case when login underscore date equal first underscore login underscore date, then 1 else 0 and the case statement as new underscore users, comma, sum open and close parenthesis case when login underscore date not equal to first login underscore date, then 1 else 0 and the case statement, and as returning underscore users. And we have to write a group by clause here, group by login underscore date. Execute this query starting from the beginning, that is starting from the first CTE. Execute, and we will get the same result that we have obtained using solution 1. Hence we have verified the solution 1, and this is similar to what we have obtained using the first query. This is also correct. And in the first solution we made use of the concept of window function, that is aggregate function as a window function, and in the second question particularly we made use of the concept of joins and obtained the result. So these are the two solutions that we can use in order to obtain new users and returning users for a particular app or website or anything that a company would like to track. This is how we can obtain solution to the new user versus returning user problem like a pro. These approaches are efficient, easy to explain, and shows interviewers you understand the logic behind the data, not just the code. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe for more. There are plenty of other interesting and tricky SQL interview questions waiting for you on the channel. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.